Sometime last year, there was a comment under one of my videos that said that in the book And Don't Fuck It Up, An Oral History of RuPaul's Drag Race, the first 10 years by María Elena Fernandez, BenDeLaCreme revealed that she signed a contract before All-Stars 3 that said she would eliminate herself, for which she would get the prize money the winner would get. I was like, oh wow, that's quite a big information. I must buy and read this book. And then I did it. And then that was not mentioned in there. And the book was not that good. If you came here to actually hear how the book itself was, I will read you my review of it from Goodreads. The book is essentially just a collection of transcribed interviews with a couple of queens, producers, and show-related personalities from the first 10 seasons of Drag Race. It really has no literary quality to it. The minimal amount of writing done by the author is riddled with errors, inconsistencies, and bad attempts at including drag lingo into the text. The amount of content for each season varies, and many major talking points are completely ignored, especially in the All-Stars chapter. I would recommend the book to a casual fan of the show who has never had access to the internet, as most of the behind-the-scenes tea could or should be known by even a casual follower of the queens outside of the show. However, I don't think that the said casual fans of the show would care to know more about it than they already do. Note the descriptor: casual. The author's past work as a journalist is noticeable in the style and presentation of the book, and if anything, if you know the queens she's interviewing, you can hear them while reading their answers to Fernandez's questions. I enjoyed reading anything from Raja, Shea Coulee, Jinx Monsoon, Bianca Del Rio, and Raven, who gave great information and good insight on their respective seasons. However, any paragraph from Laganja, Alyssa Edwards, and Eureka is a skip. They never say anything of substance, yet their parts are always the longest, and sometimes even unreadable. In fact, a lot of the quotes from other queens bring nothing to the text, and in reality, about half of the book is just filler. No information, just vibes. Furthermore, a lot of the producers of the show were interviewed as well, and there are a couple of instances where, if you're more than just a casual fan, you can tell that they're blatantly lying. Overall, I would not recommend the book. This project should have been a 2-hour documentary with the queens and the producers at best. Before we continue, I just want to say that if you would like to help the channel, since YouTube hates its creators, you can like or dislike this video, leave a comment, and of course, make sure you're subscribed. You can also become a member of the channel, and I want to thank all of these lovely people here who have become members so far. They have seen this video before the rest of you, and they already have other videos to watch. Some of those videos being channel exclusive content. Now, let's get back to the book. I'll give you an example of the cringe writing from the first page of the book. Listen to this. Quote, "From the halls of Congress to Wall Street, from schoolyards to universities, from big cities to small towns across the world, who doesn't throw shade or serve tea?" Anytime the author puts her 2 cents into the book, it's so bad. It's also very clear that this book could not have been made without the involvement of the production, so it never allows the queens or anyone else that was interviewed for it really to criticize the show. It mythologizes RuPaul and glorifies him. We do get a lot of instances of queens sharing how much RuPaul as a drag queen in the 90s meant to them, and that's a very nice part of the book, because it properly talks about representation and the necessity of being seen in art and media. RuPaul himself was interviewed for the book, and he does make a couple of slip-ups here and there that actually does pull back the curtain of the show. In the preface, he mentions that he's aware of the hero journey most queens can go through and do go through on the show, which is then amplified for the audience. This is why I often say that a regular season of Drag Race can never be won by a villain. Ru also says, quote, "In male-dominated culture, using femininity as a palette is akin to treason." Now, this here is low-key an incorrect way of looking at this issue. Most of the people working and competing on the show are male, so that in itself is a male-dominated culture. Furthermore, Ru here is confusing sex, as in male and female, and gender expression concepts, masculinity and femininity. It's not really progressive to think that men should be masculine, women should be feminine, and that it's rebellious to mix those two together. It's actually conservative, but instead of judging the people rebelling against the system like you would assume a conservative does, it's actually awarding them. It's complimenting them, but it's still done under these strict guidelines of masculinity and femininity. With all due respect to any drag queen ever, very rarely will they actually be knowledgeable enough to speak on social matters. So I don't understand why the author decided to keep some of the quotes related to that. For example, one of the executive producers of the show, Tom Campbell, says that, quote, drag queens have already been on the front lines of the big social changes in society and especially in the LGBTQ society, end quote, which is just false. They are on the front lines of LGBTQ issues, absolutely, but social changes as a whole and always? Nah, dude. Now, regarding Drag Race specifically, in the mid to late 2000s, Fenton Bailey and Tom Campbell wanted to pitch a show with drag queens to Ru, and Ru said, quote, I'll do anything but a competition elimination show. Ru also adds, quote, I stayed away from reality television for years because I did not want to do anything mean-spirited, end quote. Oh, how the tables have turned. It's interesting also that the people behind the show expressed how Obama's first term helped Drag Race and its initial success. So, had the Democratic Party not won that election, maybe Drag Race would have never happened. Who knows? The original concept for Drag Race that has somewhat been lost in these past couple of years was queens having to do challenges that were simply things that Ru had to do in his career. Then the show started getting developed. Tom Campbell came up with the concept of the bottom two queens lip-syncing for their life. Later on in the section about season 1, Nina Flowers reveals that the queens had found out about this format on the main stage. Matthew Anderson, Ru's previous makeup artist, came up with the phrases "Shantae you stay" and "Sashay away." A lot of the stuff in this show did not come directly from RuPaul. I wouldn't say that this is all of the information provided for how the show had started, but it's the majority of it, really. Even in the upcoming chapters about seasons, they often reveal, quote-unquote, some of the most well-known information about the seasons, and mostly in passing. However, here and there are actually interesting bits and pieces of information that I will share, like I've just done here for the preface. Talking about season 1, the author writes, quote, these girls did not know it then, but they were pioneers and they were flawless, hunty, end quote. You know, at a certain point, this kind of writing just ends up sounding homophobic. Randy Barbato comments on the season's cast and that it was the way it was for the sake of showcasing different styles of drag. Quote, pageant drag, glam drag, fashion drag, end quote. And truly, season 1's cast is one of the most diverse casts in the show's history. Even though back then, the point was not to score, well, points with an audience for whom diversity is only skin deep. Rather, they wanted to actually showcase different styles of drag. It was their mission statement and not performative activism. Something that I did not know, or maybe I knew but I forgot, is that Nina Flowers got onto the show by the means of online voting on Facebook after beating out hundreds of other drag artists. On the other hand, Bibi Zahara Benet was asked twice to be on this season, but she denied them. After Ru watched her perform, she personally encouraged Bibi to audition for season 1. This puts Nina's winning Miss Congeniality, that was then voted by the fans, and Bibi winning the season into a whole new perspective, as Nina was literally handpicked by the fans to be on the show, and Bibi was handpicked by Ru to be on it. Similarly to Bibi, Tammy Brown was pretty much also picked by Ru to be on the show. The network was kind of against it. They did not really get Tammy, but Ru really wanted to showcase different aesthetics on the season, which is why Tammy got on. This next bit of information I do remember, but I still want to share for any newer fans who might be watching this video. So, to quote Chanel, the original premise was that you and your fashion designer were going on the show together, competing against other teams. So, my costume designer and I decided that we were going to team up together and go on the show and compete against the other teams, end quote. The designers also had to go through this audition process. Bibi reveals that they got to pack only 4 boxes for the show, and I'm assuming she's talking about like this? Maybe she went 4 suitcases? I don't know. The queens got categories for the looks that they had to bring. So, for example, for the Oprah challenge, they were told to bring an office reality look. Nina Flowers also only had 2 days to pack for season 1, and given that she had maybe the best runways on the season, that's an insane feat. Tom Campbell in this section also revealed something that we kind of knew before. He feeds Ru lines, meaning that he tells Ru the jokes and the puns that he can say during runways, or during challenges and deliberations. Of Of course, Ru does come up with his stuff too, so it's not all Tom's work. Tom also revealed how Untucked happened, or rather, that was Under the Hood, as it was known in the first season. Randy Barbato starts by saying, quote, "Right outside the control room, there was a couch in a hallway, and the queens would come out there. I became obsessed with just watching them." Tom Campbell adds on to this and says, quote, "I remember Randy watching and saying, 'This is the show.' It was just the queens kicking back and talking real smack. I came up with, if you're not watching Untucked, you're only getting half the story." End quote. You know, it's interesting what he's saying here. As iconic as Drag Race is, the Drag Race moments that make it into the public consciousness and pop culture are usually scenes and quotes from Untucked, and yet most people don't even watch Untucked. I mean, I'm gonna be honest, I have not watched Untucked since like season 11. Anyway, back to season 1. Ongina, after walking into the workroom and seeing Rebecca, Nina, and Chanel, thought that the three of them were the hosts of the show. And honestly, once Ru retires, yeah, give it to these three. Why not? Ongina also mentions that since she was the first queen of the show to say hi, she actually receives royalty checks from Alaska for her use of the phrase, which is iconic. I think one of the most memorable parts of season 1 was the heavy filter. You'll be shocked to find out that the actual blur was not that severe. Originally, only the runways had this sort of glam filter on, but then Randy Barbato told them to add the filter onto all of the episodes. Furthermore, since the lighting was not so great in the studio back then, they added the blur to soften Ru's, the queens, and the judges' features. So what I'm hearing is there might still be footage of the show pre-filter. Can we get that somehow, please? During season 1, there was a moment shown after Ongina and BB's lip sync where Ru left the stage to talk to the producers on who should be eliminated. Ru was gone for about half an hour, which, and I've always said this, I think happened because Ongina did better in the lip sync and in the competition, but they had picked BB to be the winner of the season, so they were figuring out what to do. However, seemingly, Ru left the judging panel and talked to the producers after every single lip sync. I guess we could have assumed this, since the producers do have to decide which queen would be more important to stay for the story of the season, and if they could make that queen look like she had won the lip sync. Another bit of information about season 1 that I think is also well known is the fact that Chanel's lip sync stunt was planned, which she confirms in the book, but she also confirmed during the reunion. The price for the season was $10,000, which adjusted for inflation is about $15,000. However, the queens during the filming of the season did not know how much the prize money is. Actually, they did not know what the prize was. Chris McKim talks about this saying, quote, "While we were filming, Ru says the grand prize, right? But for the longest time, we did not know what it was. So instead of saying the amount, Ru would say moose cock." End quote. Yep, I think we should end this on moose cock. Season 1, like I mentioned, was unique in that it showcased different styles of drag. Season 2's cast? Well, like Pandora Box pointed out, quote, "Everyone literally looked like they were a woman. It was all a very similar style of drag. There was no Nina Flowers, or an Ongina, or a Tammy Brown. I'm the clown." End quote. I like this quote by Pandora since it points out the lack of diversity in season 2's queens, which I've actually never noticed before, or at least I've never thought about it. What it also tells me is that Pandora herself saw herself as the comedy queen of the season, the archetype on the show that was built on her character. It's the queen that puts comedy and character work first, and who is very closely tied to theater culture, but who's often criticized for her looks. Without Pandora, we would not have had queens like Jinx, Dela, Ginger, Katya, Jan, Lucy, and others on Drag Race. Furthermore, without Pandora and her portrayal of Carol Channing on Snatch Game, we would not have had Jinx Monsoon, the drag queen. And here's the thing, Pandora did not bring Carol Channing as a character for Snatch Game. The producers had seen the Carol skits that Pandora did, and they thought that she should do her. Just imagine the ripple effect of Pandora not doing Carol on Snatch Game. So then we don't get Jinx on Drag Race, possibly no no Dela on Drag Race. One of Alaska Talks wins season 5, which changes All-Stars 2, and so on and so on. Pandora not winning Snatch Game is often seen as a production choice to make the other queens mad over Tatiana getting a win, because nobody thought that she would win that. Tatiana herself did not think she would win that, especially because, quote, Pandora Box made me break character a couple of times, end quote. I just want to throw in here also that Raven wanted to play it safe for Snatch Game because she had been in the bottom 2 for the previous 2 episodes, so she did Paris Hilton. Her alt for the challenge was Cher. With all due respect to Raven, I cannot imagine her doing Cher. And speaking of Raven, she talked about Tyra's behavior in this chapter, which is a big subject when it comes to talking about season 2. She said, quote, the night after a wedding dresses incident, we went out to eat. Tyra had ordered her burger. She just wanted meat on a bun. When they brought it out to her, it had lettuce, tomato, and pickle. Before the waiter could put the plate down on the table, Tyra goes, hold on, pulls the bun off, takes all the innards of the burger out, puts it in his hand, and says, what am I supposed to do with this? We were all looking at her like, why would you do that to anyone? That was when I think people were like, okay, we're sick of the immaturity, end quote. Regarding the said incident during the wedding dresses challenge, Tatiana and Tyra actually almost got into a physical altercation because of Tyra's behavior. I find it so interesting how the show edited this episode. Yes, the queens were annoyed with Tyra, but we clearly did not see the extent of just how annoying she was. Of course, they had to edit it like this since they knew that she had won the season, so they had to make her look the best they could given the material. Not much else is really revealed in this chapter about season 2. We find out that Tatiana, Jujubee, and Jessica Wilde were all competing in the online race to get onto the show. The queens were almost always drunk after Untucked because Absolute Vodka was the sponsor, and because Jujubee got hammered, for future seasons they limited each queen with only 1 alcoholic drink per person. This isn't even mentioned in the book, like I'm telling you this as like general knowledge about Drag Race that for some reason is left out of the book. Oh yeah, and lastly, Merle revealed that she knew from the beginning Tyra was probably going to win the season because the production loved her. However, for her, the winner of the season was a Raven. I mean, given the current state of Tyra and Raven's careers, yeah, I think we can say that Raven ended up kind of being the true winner of season 2. If you thought the season 2 section of the video was short, just wait for season 3. This season is famous for the fact that the winner got leaked, due to which for all future seasons they filmed multiple endings, and Ru actually came up with this. He said, quote, I was in between sleep and waking up, and it occurred to me to shoot 3 different endings, end quote. This season's cast was a little more diverse style-wise than season 2, but it was nowhere near season 1. In fact, the producers of the show wanted Alaska to be on season 3, but Ru denied her casting because the audience was not into quote-unquote different type of drag. Shangela being brought back after being the first eliminated of season 2 was also a big part of season 3's story. Raja comments on this by saying, quote, she and I had just had a falling out. I always want to help the new queens. I had seen her on season 2 and I really liked her. I liked her energy. I liked her talent and she was such a force. When she was on the reunion episode for season 2, I dressed her head to toe. The wig is mine. I wanted her to look really good since she got kicked off first. When she brought me back the wig and all the stuff, the dress had food stains on it and the wig was messed up. So I was upset and I was feeling like a big old diva. She was so annoying because she did not know how to do anything on her own. She had to ask help from everybody. I was like, okay, we have issues, let's make this theater, end quote. Shangela seemed to have beef with everyone on that season, at least a little bit, since there was an alleged fight between her and Mimi, due to which they had to stop filming. Shangela had even thought that the show got cancelled because of their altercation. Now, this is an interesting part of the book, since we do know that there was a break in filming season 3, and we also do know that the fight between Mimi and Shangela happened. However, the fight is not actually confirmed here, and allegedly the filming of season 3 paused because of Ru's health issues, which is not even remotely mentioned here. The filming took a 3-week break, and then the season continued normally. Season 3 is famous for having a lot of design challenges, sometimes even back-to-back, where queens had very little time to make elaborate looks out of unconventional materials. Roger reveals that for the top 4 episode, the production was about to take a 3-day break because it was a weekend and a holiday coming up. However, However, the queens were not finished with their looks, so Raja told them, quote, "We need you to allow us to take our things so we can work on our dresses over the weekend. Wouldn't you prefer to see us in wonderful looking costumes instead of pissed and looking like shit and trash?" End quote. Raja and the other queens were so tired that Raja actually wanted to quit the show. She had a tantrum, and because of this, the production let them take their looks, materials, and sewing machines into their hotel rooms so they could finish their looks. I've mentioned that for season 1, Bibi was the production favorite. For season 2, it was Tyra. Can you guess who it was for season 3? Well, Chris McKim and Tom Campbell revealed that before that 3-day weekend and before seeing the queen's finished looks, the production was behind Yara Sofia winning. On top of this, Yara had actually finished her look before the said weekend, and she could not work more on it because she had run out of materials. So, had Raja not wanted to quit, and had she not had her tantrum, Yara would have been probably the only one with an actually finished product on the runway for that episode, possibly even getting the win there. That immediately means that one of the original top 3 would have been eliminated in that challenge, and who knows, maybe the production would have gone for a Yara crowning with her in the top 3. It is something that they were leaning towards. Again, just think of the ripple effect of Raja not winning season 3 and Yara winning it. Right away, Sharon Needles does not win season 4. And that's everything on season 3. We really gotta thank Raja for carrying this chapter on her back. We do get a little more information about season 4, a season that, as the author says, quote, catapulted the series into pop cultural realness. What? Sharon Needles is maybe one of the most important winners of the franchise because after her win in this season, Drag Race and its audience actually became invested in alternative styles of drag, which were not really present on seasons 2 and 3. Due to this, Alaska recalls that Sharon did not think there was a place for her on Drag Race. However, she decided to audition on a whim and she got onto the show. And then she won it. Randy Barbato actually says that it was Raja and Raven that laid the groundwork for Drag Race to have its future, but that it was Sharon who cemented it. One of the main storylines of season 4 was the feud between Sharon Needles and Fifi O'Hara. The actual fight that happens between the two, the iconic Tired Ass Showgirl Go Back to Party City exchange, happens because of none other than Kenya Michaels, as Dida Ritz and Jiggly recall it. Kenya went to Fifi and told her about something Sharon had said to the judges while Fifi was safe, and Fifi went off on Sharon. This season's Snatch Game is also very infamous for just how bad the performances of the first row girlies were, but it was especially bad because of Jiggly's and Kenya's disruptive performances. Jiggly's entire Snooki Wants Mush Mush bit happened because Jiggly did not have an answer prepared for Rue's last question. Dida Ritz, who had found herself on the receiving end of that nonsense, played Wendy Williams. However, her original character was Beyoncé. But Kenya took Beyoncé. Her backup was Diana Ross. But Milan took Diana Ross, so she ended up being Wendy. Obviously, they talk about Willem here, and what did actually Willem do? The author mentions the following, quote, leaving the hotel to go to a nearby store, getting drunk and high, having a computer in his room, and stealing from set, end quote. Latrice later adds that Willem's husband had come to her hotel room, and Jiggly insinuates that Willem's puking had been planned by her. Although, I don't know if we can believe this, because Jiggly was not there. The thing is, to this day, we don't know exactly what happened. Willem is low-key a pathological liar, and there are so many different stories she had tried to present about her time on season 4, and why exactly she's not in WoW's good graces. Given that the story about Willem is not resolved in the book, it kind of feels unnecessary here. If the producers are not going to tell us why Willem was disqualified, why even talk about it? Worst part is, Tom Campbell says, quote, it's hard to know now if what Willem did behind the scenes really happened. Some of it really happened, some of them he lied about, end quote. Yeah, this book needs some editing. Either way, the queens felt that something was off on the day of Willem's disqualification. Because of the rule breaking in season 4, which also included Dida and Willem going shopping for supplies and Jiggly having a cell phone, again amongst other things that are not mentioned in this book, the queens after season 4 were on lockdown when not filming. There is only one other tidbit about the season that is not about the finale, and it's about the This Will Be lip sync, the iconic Dida versus the Princess lip sync. Originally, Natalie Nicole wanted the show to use another song of hers, like a new single that she was promoting then, but the producers explained to her that This Will Be was an iconic song that is very important to a lot of queer people, so they went with that. Now, the 3-ending finale was a last-minute addition to the show, according to Chad Michaels. She says, quote, "At the finale, they were walking us on stage in our final looks and they said, we're going to go ahead and film 3 endings tonight, and we're going to crown each and every one of you, and then we're going to announce the real winner on the show when it airs." And we were all, are you fucking kidding me? We were pissed because they sprung it on us last minute. It wouldn't have been an issue if they had prepped us for it, but to break protocol and switch the rules up and change the format the second before you walk on stage. End quote. Pretty much everyone in the book talks about how important Sharon's win was, with, for example, Adore saying that she saw the shift in the drag community because of Sharon. I want to read you what Chad said about this. Quote, "Sharon was the winner the world needed at that time for the people that were not seeing themselves in the competition, for the people who considered themselves outsiders, outcasts, nerds, not your average run-of-the-mill gays. He represented a lot of people who did not have a voice, and for that reason, I happily lost to Sharon." End quote. Violet Chachki, in the chapter on season 7, mentioned that she started doing drag after seeing Sharon on season 4. She said, quote, "With Sharon, it was very clear that there were no rules on how to do drag, and I think that's what really connected everyone to the show." End quote. Since we're going into season 5 now, let's end on Jinx Monsoon again. Previously, in the book, she had stated that Pandora Box made her stick to doing drag. Here, ending the chapter, she says that it was Sharon's win on season 4 that made her audition for season 5. However, later in the chapter in season 5, Jinx expands on this and talks about how Sharon's win had affected pageant queens on the show. She says, quote, "I really think that Sharon Needles winning shook the drag community. In a way, the queens who had always been celebrated were suddenly being criticized. I think the pageant queens went into season 5 with a certain level of defensiveness. What was popular was deconstructing drag and rethinking drag, where it doesn't always have to be pretty, where it doesn't always have to be glamorous, where it can be disgusting and shocking. The balance of power had shifted in the world, and they had to fight to get back on top." End quote. Jinx's lore in season 5 would not have been as strong as it is had she not had someone to go up against. That someone is Rolaska Talks. You probably know that Rolaska Talks was formed because Roxy, Alaska, and Detox were the smokers of the season, so they got to go outside, smoke, and hang out. The reason why they clicked so well was because Alaska and Roxy had both been friends of Detox's prior to the season. Roxy thought that her, Detox, and Alyssa were going to be the top 3 of the season, whereas Alaska and Detox were on the same flight when going to shoot season 5. Also, Alaska was the one that came up with the name Rolaska Talks. Alaska was also the most talented one of the group in the eyes of the other queens, but Alaska herself felt like she was there to help Detox and Roxy, rather than helping herself. Another iconic part of this season, and in the lore of Jinx Monsoon, is her catchphrase, mantra, what have you, water off a duck's back. This saying actually came from Robbie Turner. Jinx explains, quote, "I told everyone I was going to a nature retreat. So Robbie Turner was driving me to the airport and I said, I'm really nervous about this nature retreat, Robbie. I'm nervous that other people at the nature retreat are going to hate me and they're going to make my life a living hell." And Robbie said, "If they do that, just say water off a duck's back. Convince yourself that you don't care." End quote. So we can attribute Jinx's success on the show to Pandora Box, Sharon Needles, and Robbie Turner. However, before Jinx versus Rolaska Talks, there was Alyssa versus Coco. Maybe the most memorable moment of the show's history is the back rolls conversation that happened in Untucked with Coco, Jade, and Alyssa. Before this conversation happened, like before the actual runway where Alyssa had the said back roll showing, Coco kind of hinted to her that she should not wear the said outfit because of the back rolls. Quote, "Alyssa put on the outfit and I was like, are you gonna wear that?" And that was her cue to say no. I wasn't gonna say, don't wear that, or you need to do this. And Jade was there. When we got on Untucked, Jade talked about the back rolls and I was sitting in the corner. And Alyssa said, "Coco, you weren't gonna tell me?" I told her she did not take the hint. I had nothing to do with Jade saying that. End quote. Something that happened off camera, although I swear I have seen a clip of this, though maybe I'm lying, I don't know, is Alyssa's response to Jade. She said, quote, "Let me tell you something. You know how you knew I had back rolls? Because when they called the winner, you were behind me," end quote. Alyssa made a lot of great TV on season 5, and we're going to talk about her lip syncs now. First, it's her lip sync against Roxy. That was a double shantay. Even though all the queens present, Alyssa included, thought that it was Alyssa's time to go. This moment was all about Roxy though, with her wig reveal into another wig and her sharing the bus stop story. Alyssa's last lip sync in the season was against Coco, and she was going into it pretty defeated. Coco reveals that Alyssa did not know the words to the song, and that she kept saying that she was just going to dance her way through the song. I mean, she did dance her way through it, but Coco really embodied Cold-Hearted, especially the fast bit with repeated lyrics, which I think cemented Alyssa's loss here. Also, it's hilarious that Alyssa did not know the words to 2 out of 3 songs she lip-synced to, and that on season 5, she technically lost 2 lip syncs. The last bit about season 5 we're gonna talk about is actually about another lip sync, the infamous, maybe even controversial lip sync between Detox and Jinx. I just want to mention that this part of the book is talked about before the Alyssa versus Coco lip sync, which makes no sense, like timeline-wise, but also narratively. Girl, let me edit your book. Anyway, yeah, the controversy behind the Detox versus Jinx lip sync is that the song for the lip sync was changed at the last minute to ensure Jinx goes into the top 3. There is a lot of information here, so let's read it all out. You can follow the story on the screen. Quote, "The first day of filming, we go to the holding area and then they're just ushering us into rooms, one at a time. We sat in the rooms for like an hour waiting for our big entrance. It was like a warehouse. When they had us all sequestered before our entrances, they gave us little iPod Nanos, so we could not hear anything. We were told to listen to music and it was already loaded. While we were waiting, you could hear somebody screaming, singing from the top of their lungs, wow, 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 wow. And I'm like, who the hell is singing so damn loud? It's so annoying. And it was Jinx. They had to go tell her to shut up because she just had them in and was singing so loud. It was the song she ended up doing for the lip sync. They always tell us what the lip sync song would be in case we wanted to start listening to it. They had told us at the beginning of the day that it was going to be En Vogue's Free Your Mind. And then by the end of the day, they told us that they had made a choice to change the song because of the licensing agreement. They changed it to Malambo number 1, and that was my song. I don't know why they made that decision, but here are the facts. We have an iPod that has all the songs that we could potentially lip sync on them. A lot of the songs were pop songs that I did not care for, but the 2 songs I really loved were Defying Gravity from Wicked and Malambo number 1. It's interesting that they waited like 12 years to use Defying Gravity as a lip sync song. That's just what I'm saying here, like I'm popping in to say this. Roxy talks next, quote, "As soon as they saw what Jinx's outfit looked like, the Miss Reindeer Santa Claus, they came in the workroom the day of the runway and said that the song is changed. And we're like, bitch, we're ready to do Free Your Mind, whoever's on the bottom. Why are you all changing the song?" And then we knew, end quote. Jinx continues this by saying, quote, "Do I think they were trying to stack it in my favor? Possibly. I do know that I was listening to Malambo number 1 constantly, not because I thought it was going to be a lip sync song. I loved the song. At one point, we were all in the workroom talking about the songs on the iPod that we knew we would win if it was our lip sync. And I said, you all talk about Malambo number 1 like it's the worst song on the iPod, but I swear to God, if you have to lip sync against me, you better hope that it's not Malambo number 1. I said that out loud in the workroom for everyone to hear early in the competition." End quote. Detox's take on this is, quote, "I was annoyed going into it. As soon as they changed the song, I knew I was gonna go home," end quote. However, one of the producers, Tom Campbell, denies that this was rigged for Jinx, saying that it was all just a matter of getting the rights to use the song. Jinx concludes this story by saying that she would have won the lip sync no matter the song. From season 5 we go on to, you will be surprised, season 6. There was really no mention of the online voting for one queen to be guest on the show for the previous 3 seasons, and here Adore does bring up this aspect of the show. In the run-up to season 5, Adore was actually the fan favorite that could have been on the show. And as she says, quote, "I just wanted a year experience first and I auditioned for season 5. And like, low-key, I think they gave it to Penetration because I did not have any clothes. I was that close to getting on, but I had no wardrobe to fulfill the challenges needed." End quote. Adore lucked out that she was not on season 5 because she would have been eaten alive on that season, and she probably would not have been as big as she is now. Even so, some of Adore's drag on season 6 was actually leftovers given to her by Kylie Sonique. Season 6 introduced the concept of split premieres. Adore thought that they were either doing a mini-season or that out of her group, only one queen was going to be part of the actual cast. Other than the split premieres, season 6 also popularized the entrance lines. And who did that? Oh yeah, it was Laganja. About her entrance, Laganja said, quote, "The entrance was something that I had planned long before I ever even auditioned. I think as someone who watches The Real Housewives of Atlanta, where you have to have a catchphrase, this was something that I had already wrapped my brain around long before auditioning." End quote. Bianca's original entrance line was, "I must be in someone's nose because this room is full of boogers," which is so stupid. Obviously, she did not get to use it because she was the first one out of her group in the workroom. Bianca actually knew that one of the other queens from the cast are going to be on the season, Courtney Act. She said, quote, "There were many sites online that were saying Courtney was on the show. The night before I flew to LA, I was on Facebook, and I cannot remember if it was me first or Courtney that sent a message saying, 'See you tomorrow.'" End quote. Bianca's hotel room was connected to Milk's, and the two of them spent time together in the hotel, getting close and all of that. Something you could not actually see watching the season. However, it was Milk, but then also Laganja, Adore, and Dayla that all said that they knew Bianca was going to win the season. We're just gonna keep talking about Bianca because she's like the only person from season 6 giving any information. Adore and Laganja's quotes are borderline unreadable. Originally, for the Rusical, Bianca and Darian played the comedy queens, while Trinity and Gia were pageant queens. Bianca suggested that they should switch, so Gia did the comedy queen role and Bianca did the pageant queen role. This challenge is also where Bianca and Trinity bonded, but also clashed. Darian also shares that Trinity just could not get the role right, and that they had spent so much time on Bianca and Trinity in the rehearsals that Darian and Gia barely got any time to rehearse properly. Later, for the stand-up challenge, Bianca's performance was mostly improvised. She saw that most other queens just spent their sets talking about each other, and she completely changed her routine and improvised her set. During her set, she went against the guy that heckled Dayla and apparently a lot of the other queens. The person in question was Jinx's partner from the makeover episode on season 5. Now here's the thing, and I'm going to shit on the writer and the editor of the book a bit here. It seems like neither of them had seen Drag Race before, nor did they fact check a lot of the stuff in the book. Because here, about the heckler, Adore says, quote, "That guy was the heckler from Jinx's season, he was heckling Jinx." End quote. Hey, so that's not true. Like, literally not true. We're talking about maybe the most memorable makeover challenge partner, next to, I guess, Alexis Mateos on season 3, and then Sarge on season 9. How do you leave this in the book? It's not like Adore added anything to the conversation here. Like, this book is 450 pages long. It could have been cut down to a solid 200 with proper editing. Anyway, back to talking about Bianca, because again, she's the only person giving us any info. Bianca says that she had helped all of the queens in the top 5, in the ball episode, which Jocelyn later confirms and actually expands on, saying that Bianca was always the first to finish getting ready, and she would go around the workroom asking queens what they needed help with. Jocelyn goes as far as saying that Bianca should have been the Miss Congeniality of season 6 due to this. During the top 5 challenge for the Banji runway, Darian Lake actually somehow twisted her ankle. I did not know that. You know how for season 4 they did 3 different endings for the finale? Yeah, well, in season 6 they started doing 4 different endings for the top 4 episode. First, the queens lip synced to CC That Walk, Adore versus Darian, then Bianca versus Courtney. Even though later in the book, the author says that it was Adore and Bianca lip syncing against each other. Editing me here. I noticed another mistake while taking a photo of this. On the page prior, the author writes that season 6 had the show's first lip synced musical, which is not true. Famously, this musical was completely sung live. That was the point of the challenge because Courtney and Adore were there. However, the queens were eliminated in a very peculiar order. First, they filmed a version with Courtney getting eliminated. eliminated. Then Adore got eliminated. And here, Adore actually thought that she had just been chosen as the winner of the season. I don't know how she could have thought that, but anyway. Then Darren was eliminated, and last to be film getting eliminated was Bianca. The finale of season 6 also included the first, and I actually think the only time that they have filmed a double crowning. Again, editing me here. A couple of days ago, Trixie revealed on her and Katya's podcast that All Stars 3 actually had filmed a double crowning between her and Kennedy, where the two of them would have split their reward, so this was just lack of information on my end. They went down the line alphabetically this time, and they filmed Adore winning twice. Then it was Bianca, then Courtney. After this, Ru had talked to the producers, and they came back and filmed the double crowning between Adore and Bianca. Due to this, Bianca was sure Adore was going to win the season. Poor Courtney though, like she knew she had no shot. Season 6 is maybe the most popular season of the show, arguably it's also the best season, and this was the moment when teens, young adults, and straight people, especially straight women, started really paying attention to Drag Race. And Mandy Selengsang, I think, said that this was because of Adela and Adore mostly. A lot of the queens in this chapter were praised for their characters, and the season really was divided into queens that played characters and then queens that had big personalities but were not playing characters. Most of the cast actually shits on the newer seasons of the show because of how fake everyone is. It makes sense then why the show pushed for a more real approach to the queens, why they themed the season around the new versus old school queens, and why they wanted a younger queen to win in season 7. The chapter on season 7 is really short. It's merely 20 pages long, and it's full of mistakes that could have been fixed by, again, just watching the show, or even worse, just reading what the actual queens have said for the book. Thankfully, we got Trixie and Katya talking about season 7 on their podcast, so there's actual information there. The choice for the first episode to start with 2 fashion shows essentially came after the production saw Violet and Miss Fame's audition tapes. Why they then chose to have a season of almost exclusively acting and comedy challenges, I will never know. Violet comments on this by saying, quote, "It makes sense that they did this 3-look runway on the first episode, but it almost seems like they did it to get that aspect out of the way because the rest of the season was all acting challenges." Katya shares later that she thinks Pearl should have gone home in the lip sync against Trixie, but she also finds that the story given to Pearl that she changed her personality is not real, or rather, Pearl did not change. The judges just got Pearl. Again, this fucking author. So she introduces the story of Max's elimination, saying, quote, "Max asked for a moment on stage that led to some awkward singing on the steps that may or may not have been prompted by RuPaul," end quote. Anyone who has even remotely looked into Drag Race knows that that moment was edited to make Max look bad. And like, okay, we have kind of established that the author probably thinks RuPaul's Drag Race is actually about cars, but literally only 2 pages after this bit about Max, you get Ginger, Katya, and Kennedy saying that Max did not just suddenly take off her corset, that Max did not just suddenly out of nowhere start singing, and that it was absolutely all prompted by RuPaul. Awful writing. Violet also mentions that she almost fainted in between her 2 walks for the That Becomes Her runway. The last bit of information given about season 7 was from Trixie, and it's about her and Pearl's makeover look. Quote, "She had this idea for prom queens, and then I was like, no, let's do like teen pageant twins. They say one twin is always prettier than the other. Let's exaggerate that. Let's make you gorgeous and me not meant for beauty pageants." And I knew I could probably figure out how to make braces, so I made those braces from a nail file, some hair clip, some wire, a paper clip I unfurled, and I stuck beads on it and super glued it to the teeth, so when I smiled, I had real train tracks on my teeth. End quote. That's all fine and dandy, but it should have been Katya and Kasha's win in that episode. Season 8, let's go. Alongside Bianca and Sasha Colby, Bob the Drag Queen is probably one of the most obvious winners of a season. Ru was such a fan of Bob's that they had interactions on Twitter before season 8, and when Ru saw Bob's audition tape, she knew they had to get her on the show. Bob had found out that she was on the show the day that marriage equality passed in the US, so June 26th, 2015. So while preparing for Drag Race and after seeing that there was going to be an Empire-based challenge, Bob watched all of the show to prepare herself for it. Just a reminder that Bob did end up winning that challenge, and he won it wearing this look on the runway. So you might be wondering, why did Bob decide to wear that? Is she okay? Quote, "I never thought that our roller look was going to be a runway. I thought they were going to take us to a roller derby and that we were going to race or do some sort of a challenge. So my outfit was just so basic. I bought it off Amazon. I also saw this Transformers thing on YouTube. This kid had a Transformers outfit made out of cardboard. It was so cool looking and I tried to recreate it, but we have such a limited amount of time in there. End quote. This might be my unpopular opinion, but for me, episode 3 should have gone to Torji. Her performance was the second best overall, but her runway was in the top 3, whereas Bob's was bottom 3. Torji commented on this episode saying first, quote, I learned the script, and I did the cookie roll, and it was funny, and I think RuPaul loved it. But then she would get really nitty-gritty with me, which I did not appreciate. She wanted it word for word. If you watch Bob's thing, he made up his own script completely. So why was I being held to a different standard? End quote. One of the people working on the show confirmed that Bob did 3 different takes of his portrayal in the challenge. So honestly, Torji fucked over. When it comes to her runway look in that episode, Torji comments, quote, they said roller skating, so I'm like, let's do 70s porno blonde. And I made those headphones backstage out of foam and cardboard. And then the cord was some computer wire that I did not need, so I cut it and glued it onto my headphones. I will never forget Carson, who I freaking love. He goes, yeah, it's just a little done and expected, so I don't like it. And I'm like, okay, didn't Bob win this one wearing a $10 silver robot Amazon.com jumpsuit? End quote. I love Torji so much. Her one-sided rivalry with Bob is my favorite Drag Race story. There is, however, something a little more tragic that happened in the 3rd episode of the season, and it was Cynthia's elimination. As you may know, Cynthia actually was sick during the filming of season 8. She talks about it here in the book. Quote, at the end of episode 2, they called a primary care doctor because I was not feeling well. I was losing my appetite. I'm very tired and I don't know what is happening. They were saying I looked pale and yellowish. World of Wonder immediately called a doctor and they came before we started filming the acting challenge. The doctor told me I needed to see a specialist, so I had to get dressed for the acting challenge in 25 minutes, real quick. And I was feeling really bad that day. Dizziness, vertigo, nausea. I didn't look super healthy in front of the cameras. In a week, I lost 47 pounds. That's about 21 kilograms for us normal people. I was experiencing symptoms of stage 1 liver cancer, but I did not know it. During the 2 weeks I was preparing for the show, I didn't feel like eating and I was feeling a little bit tired, but I had to put together 28 to 32 looks, shoes and hair, so I thought it was just stress. End quote. We find out after the season that Cynthia is okay and that during her recovery it was Acid Betty who helped her, which a decade later actually affected the outcome of All Stars 10. The actual main feud of the season was between Derek and Bob. Bob got a comment on the runway from Michelle who told her that her drag was ratchet. Later, Derek used that against Bob. However, we aren't shown how the fight happened. Bob made a joke about Debbie Harry, though she doesn't say what kind of a joke it was. Derek does though, quote, Bob said that he wanted Blondie to be drug tested because she said I was the best singer, which now I laugh at. Why did I take it so seriously? I think it's because I was not getting the recognition or the compliments that maybe Bob and the other people were getting, and I think he was used to being complimented, and so the fact that he really didn't that episode, it was easy for him to take a jab at me, and I gave it right back. End quote. Derek was part of another infamous moment from season 8, the Kimono Gate. Let's see what Derek, Kim, and Torji had to say about this. Derek says first, quote, I had the kimono made by Coco Vega, who, by the way, was actually supposed to be Chanel's partner on season 1. And Nick, my partner, painted Madonna's on it, so it would be different from what she wore and add an artistic flair to it. And then I find out that there are 3 other kimonos and 2 kimonos had already been eliminated. So out of 12 of us, 6 were going to be the same. End quote. Kim actually reveals that the production somewhat sabotaged her runway presentation. Quote, one thing that frustrates me was when we were doing our makeup, the crew supplied the inspiration shots for different Madonnas. The Madonna I chose was from Paradise, her tour. Everyone else chose Nothing Really Matters Madonna. But they supplied the reference images from Paradise to the girls with Nothing Really Matters, which is how we ended up looking so similar. End quote. I kinda get what she was saying actually, because Derek ended up adding the red lip to her look, which Madonna does not have in Nothing Really Matters, and Torji Listen, I love her, but the makeup is bordering on yellow face. Georgie actually wanted to change her look into the Frozen look, but she needed crows for that. The production did not oblige her, and they would not let her change the look. But a queen that did have birds in her Madonna look was Acid Betty. What a great transition. Acid for that lip sync wanted to give birth on stage, but like to actually pull out a baby out of her, like underneath her dress. But the only queen that had a baby prop was Naomi. We later see her use this in the paper ball for her mother look. Acid comments, quote, "I could not ask the girl that was going up against me to borrow a prop and be like, 'Can I borrow this to send you home?' End quote." And no offense to Acid, but there was no way she was beating Naomi in that lip sync. Actually, I think her giving birth on stage would have made her performance even worse. Before we talk about the top 4 in the finale, let's take a look at Chi-Chi versus Torji. The journalist Joey Nolfi says that he does not think Torji should have been in the bottom 2, and Kimchi spent the entire time thinking that she was going to be there. It's very telling watching Untucked for that episode because Torji knows she's in the bottom 2, and others think it's going to be either Derek or Kim with her, but most likely Kim. And then it ends up being Chi-Chi. We all know they ended up changing the judging for this episode to help keep Kim in the competition. I did an entire video on that. Torji also reveals that there was a change in the lip sync song, which is interesting because mid-Untucked, you see Bob randomly start talking to Kim and Derek about the song, and I'm telling you. And then very close to going on stage, we actually see the queens for the first time that think that they're going to be in the bottom preparing the song. This is because originally, the lip sync song was supposed to be You Make Me Feel Mighty Real, which ended up being used in the top 5 episodes lip sync. This makes Chi-Chi's performance in this lip sync even more impressive. Not only did she not think she was going to be in the bottom 2, so she was not listening to the song before going on stage, but the song ended up being changed before it was time for the elimination. Chi-Chi DeVayne, the legend that you are. The production literally seemed like they were working against the queens this season. Kim reveals that for the top 4's music video filming bit, the stylist brought costumes that not even Naomi could fit into. On top of that, the other 3 queens were told what colors they would be wearing in the video. Kimchi was not told that, so she could not prepare accordingly. The top 3 of the season, Bob, Naomi, and Kim, in the finale performed songs that were specifically made for them. For Bob, they wanted to do a song about purses, because remember, purse first. But Bob asked them not to do that because she was planning on releasing a purse first song. And also, do you know who prompted Bob to say purse first? It was Torji. She asked Bob how she worked the runway, and Bob said, quote, "I came out purse first," end quote. In the finale, Kimchi says that she and Naomi knew that they were not going to win, but they also did not want to win because of the possible fan backlash. Yep, like I said, Bob was a very obvious and a very deserving winner of that season. The longest chapter of the book is dedicated to Season 9. Whole 60 pages of it are about the season. Later, in the introduction to Season 10, the author calls Season 9 the show's biggest season. And I don't know about all that, but let's start from the beginning. So, walking into the workroom, Farrah Moan wanted her entrance line to be, "Look, Mom, I made it." But she ended up saying something like, "So this is what it looks like." A riveting piece of information, I know. No, what's actually more interesting here in the entrance is that after them, Trinity thought that the winner of the season was going to be Valentina. There's a very interesting quote here by Eureka that's actually really funny when you read what other queens said about her. So she goes, quote, "I was Trinity's second runner-up for Entertainer of the Year. I always felt like she was a little fatphobic to me. Like, she just always treated me worse than everybody else, and she had one of those grander-than-thou attitudes. But that's just her personality. I don't mesh well with that because I'm more of the humble, everybody belongs and has a place. I'm a jolly country fish. I don't like people that think they're better than me, especially then," end quote. I love Eureka's lack of self-awareness because pretty much all of the other queens interviewed for this book say how she always has to be in the spotlight, how she has to be the loudest, and how she's never welcoming. The author even has the nerve to later call Eureka a fan favorite. Honestly, not even in the top 100. Are the fans in the room with us? Like, what? The way Kimchi was the influencer queen cast on Season 8, Aja was that for Season 9. Aja actually went into this season man with a sinus infection. The first episode famously featured Lady Gaga meeting the queens in the workroom and then being a judge. The episode was originally supposed to be a two-look pageant, but once Gaga was available to do the episode, they changed the second look into a Gaga look. What was the original second category? Well, we don't know. There's this funny thing in the writing here where every queen says that she specifically was the first to know that it was actually Gaga and not a Gaga impersonator. However, there is yet again a bit of clashing information here, and it comes two quotes, one right after the other. Shea Coulee says that Kimura did not know that it was Gaga even after Gaga had come up to them, but Aja right after says that Kimura told her that it was Gaga, but that Aja did not know it was her. So what is the truth? During the pageant, for the Gaga look, Pheromone had a reveal that she did not do on the runway, but she did later in Untucked. She was actually influenced by the production not to do the reveal. So Farrah says, quote, "I wore a latex reveal underneath that I did not end up revealing because a mic person told me that they did not want me breaking the equipment and they did not know how to mix me in my latex without getting lube all over the equipment. That scared me out of not doing my reveal." End quote. Farrah here also mentions that they only had a couple of days to put together a Gaga look, so I assume that Gaga signed on to doing the episode late, and the queens were told close to filming dates that they also had to bring a Gaga look. The cheerleading challenge was next, and there were loads of injuries there. Cynthia was the first to reveal that she got injured, specifically she hurt her ankle, and she also revealed that they rehearsed that whole routine for 3 days. Aja passed out, remember she also had a sinus infection. Eureka's knee of course got injured, but she also had a moment where her wig fell off, but the show did not show that. It's not mentioned here like in this section, it's mentioned later, but Charlie Hides was also injured and Peppermint too. Cynthia reveals that the actual routine was 7 minutes long, but that we saw only about 1 minute of it on the show. Yeah, I went and checked and it's more like 3 minutes, but yeah, still, we did not see the whole thing, or maybe just like Cynthia misremembered that it was 7 minutes long. However, Shea reveals that the challenge really brought the girls closer because it forced them to depend on each other. Quite literally. After this challenge, we got the Princess's Design and Character Creation Challenge, and Shea reveals that they told them they had 8 hours to do the challenge. Quote, "In my mind, I knew I could do that, but that's 8 hours uninterrupted. I was not computing that this is production, and when RuPaul did a walkthrough, we would have to move and be out of the shot, so that took about an hour of time away. And then we had to go on a green screen and do our sidekicks, but they were recording sound for the sidekicks, and because the walls were paper thin, we could not run the sewing machines while they were doing a girl scene. There were 13 of us, so you would sew for 2 minutes and then have to stop for 3 and then sew for 2 and then stop for 3, end quote. That's actually insane. No wonder Valentina cheated her way through this challenge by simply adding fabric to a bathing suit that she had brought to the show. The queens actually were really pissed at Valentina getting away with this, and worse, for the show allowing her to cut corners constantly. However, Shea does compliment Valentina on working smarter, not harder. I did not know that this happened, but she also revealed that she got dragged for doing Princess Aquaria for this challenge. Aquaria, the drag queen, and her fans snapped on her, even though Shea told Aquaria after filming the season that she did a Princess Aquaria character. Eureka also revealed that she was inspired by Cynthia's character in the challenge, since Cynthia was Princess Cuculina, Cuckoo being ass for anyone not in the know. So Eureka went the opposite direction and was like Princess Eureka Diarrhea. Diarrhea. It's supposed to be diarrhea. And speaking of diarrhea, Charlie hides. Two queens, Aja and Farrah, confirm here that Charlie told them that she was not going to try if she had to lip sync in the 4th episode. I remember Charlie had said she did not lip sync because her shoes were too tall, but also because she cracked a rib during the cheerleading challenge, but also that she had diarrhea that morning. Basically, she was Willem. However, I find it funny that Peppermint is like, oh, I don't know if Charlie had a broken rib, but she did lift someone and then she fell and she got hurt. And then Shea right after her is straight up like, that bitch does not have a broken rib. Honestly, the queens in this chapter, other than Eureka, are really giving good quotes, but Shea is hard carrying the cast with actual information. Speaking of Eureka, she was taken out of the competition because of her knee injury, and Farrah and Cynthia lip synced to that one Meghan Trainor song that nobody remembers, and according to Aja, quote, Ru left the room and was gone for a good 15 minutes and nobody knew what was going to happen, end quote. However, Farrah thought that she was going to be sent home. Cynthia knew that it was going to be Eureka. The other queens, according to Trinity, all thought Cynthia and Farrah were both going to be sent home because of how bad that lip sync was. But we gotta talk about the most infamous lip sync of the season, and maybe of the whole franchise, Valentina and the Mask Gate. Apparently, we did not see the whole thing between Valentina and Rue. Trinity compares Rue's behavior here to Tyra's "we were rooting for you" moment. The lip sync was stopped, of course, and after Valentina did not want to take her mask off, Rue told her, quote, "So I stopped this lip sync for nothing." She continues, "And it was the longest pregnant pause that I had ever seen. Nobody saying anything, and RuPaul is like, 'Hello, I'm speaking to you,'" end quote. Shay said that Rue simply had her hands down on the judge's desk, but Peppermint recalls that Rue started banging the table. Why did Valentina not try? Valentina says that she did not know the song prior, and she didn't have time to learn it in the workroom. In her hotel room, she had forgot the sheet with lyrics, so she had to write down the lyrics by ear and then learn them. She did not have much time to do this, and she had only practiced the song until, quote, "she knew it enough." Clearly not well enough. Aja reveals that the queens had a group chat, and as the queens would get eliminated, they would pop into the group chat. So it was her, then Farrah, and then nobody texted for a bit. It wasn't until Nina's elimination that the eliminated girls found out what happened with Valentina. We skip a couple of episodes again to talk about the top 4. As you may recall, in season 6, they started filming 4 different endings to the top 4 episode. They did the same for season 9, with the last queen filming her elimination being Trinity. They asked the queens to come back onto the stage to refilm Trinity's elimination, and that's when Rue told them that it's not a top 3, but a top 4 finale. Sasha here says that this had been done before, but I don't know about that. I don't remember anyone saying that they did this for season 6 and season 7. Tom Campbell then talks about the finale and says, quote, "As we were working on creative for the grand finale, Tim at VH1 asked, 'What if I can get you more money for lip syncs? Could you do something with lip syncs instead of original music?' Stephen Corfey, I don't know, said, 'We have 4 top queens this season. What if they did the lip sync smackdown for the crown?' Then we created the wheel. We were like, are we really gonna let the wheel decide who lip syncs against whom? We're like, yeah, we really are. It was this weird headed over to the fates, like anyone can bring it and win." End quote. So some Tim at VH1 and Steven are the ones to blame. Also, I love how he presented this as it's in the hands of fate, as if people that were there did not say that they heard a little motor spinning the wheel. She was confused by this twist, Trinity was not pleased by it, and Sasha was happy and excited because she felt like the production had actually given her a chance at the crown. Shay even said that the production encouraged them to prepare reveals. Also, the top 4 were sent the same 4 songs. They lip synced to 3 songs in the finale, so it was Stronger, 1 Britney song, So Emotional, and It's Not Right But It's Okay, 2 Whitney songs. What was the 4th song? Well, Sasha says that it was a Christina song, so I assume it's Christina Aguilera, which is interesting because she ends up being the guest judge for the first episode of season 10. When it comes to the choosing of who would go up against whom, or if there were any strategies there, Peppermint revealed that she and Trinity made a pact to break up Shay and Sasha, meaning that the 2 of them cannot be in the final lip sync. They had to go up against each other in the semifinals. Of course, Shay and Sasha did not know about this. However, Sasha says that Trinity and Peppermint told her that they thought the show would try to have Sasha and Shay in the finale of the tournament. Furthermore, Sasha reveals that she would have gone up against Peppermint in the semifinals had she got to choose her opponent. And we're talking about Sasha in the finale, and we have not mentioned her rose petals yet. Well, here's the story behind it. Quote, "I didn't even have the rose petals until the day previous. I had the song list, and then the song list changed, and then I didn't have any ideas for the performances. I just had the costumes. And then it kind of all clicked together when they sent us So Emotional, and the lyrics of the song clicked for me. It told the story of these increased emotions, and I brought my own personal emotions to it. I brought a little story about love that I imagined with someone giving someone a rose, and how that gets twisted and changed and exaggerated. I was not going to do that exact performance if I had got Stronger. I had different timing, and I was not going to do all the reveals. I had Stronger with rose petals, Stronger without rose petals. I had So Emotional with rose petals. But in a way, I actually was hoping for Stronger, because I felt like it was the more dramatic lip sync song. But I think my performance for So Emotional was better, so I feel like it was a blessing." End quote. Something they did not show during the lip-sync battle is that Shay slipped on the rose petals. That performance was an all-out murder on national television. But yeah, Shay would have won this season had fucking Tim from VH1 and Steven not meddled into the finale's format. We start the season 10 chapter with a talk about the sponge dress, because why the hell wouldn't we? There's yet again awful writing from the author here, saying, quote, after RuPaul announced that Sponge Queen Mo Hart and a few other queens were safe, end quote. So, first of all, what do you mean and a few other queens? Which queens? Who are they? Was it so hard to go on the Wikia and look who was called safe? Or like watch the episode, God forbid. Also, Sponge Queen was Monet Exchange, not Mo Hart. Did the Georges write this book? Speaking of Mo Hart, she says here that she should have won the challenge in episode 1. Now, back then, I do remember also thinking that, because the way she constructed her skirt out of playing cards was incredible. However, looking at the look now, other than that, it's kind of messy. Sure, Cracker, Mayhem, and Yuhua, the top 3, all had fine but not astonishing looks. Albeit, Mayhem would have been my third choice for the win here, but their looks did not look messy, whereas some parts of Mo's look did. Mayhem shared this about her runway look. Quote, I was originally working on an outfit that was made out of scouring pads, and as the day ended, I looked at it and I was like, this is ugly. We all got in the van, I got in my room, and I just sobbed. The next day, I walked into the workroom and we had an hour before we had to get ready to go out there. What's left in the fucking corner that no one wanted? An umbrella, some gardening gloves, and trash bags. I took all the gloves that were left in the corner and I shaped it out of that. When RuPaul said I won, I was a wreck. End quote. In this first episode, the surprise guest judge was Christina Aguilera, but Ru announced her as Pheromone, and Cameron, Eureka, and Cracker all thought that it was actually Farrah. Farrah also shares that she had to refilm her scene of meeting Christina because her blazer button popped. Vanjie's elimination was also an important part of the first episode. Cracker shared that she told Vanjie she thought she was going to win the challenge after seeing her look. And honestly, Vanjie's look is not as bad as some other unconventional materials looks we've had on Drag Race. But I wouldn't go as far as saying that it would have won. Ru actually comments on Vanjie's lip syncing as Calorie and says, quote, Vanjie did that death drop and her shoe flew off and I thought, oh, I want to keep her just for that. End quote. Nothing really interesting of note happens for a couple of pages until Eureka reveals that the episode 2 wig that the Vixen wore when she won the challenge was actually hers. She had given it to Mo gave it to the Vixen, which then got Aquaria mad. Asia reveals that she was surprised by Blair's elimination because she saw Blair as someone who would reach the finale. And like, really? Mo Hart thinks that the bottom 2 for Snatch Game should have been Asia and the Vixen. From the challenge performance aspect of it all, I agree. Absolutely. But you know that the production would not have done it because both the Vixen and Asia were in storylines. The cast of this season often talks about how Cameron Michaels is really quiet and reserved, and a lot of them throughout this chapter mentioned that they did not want to go up against Cameron in a lip sync. Cameron says, quote, the girls knew that I knew every lip sync song because I was in the workroom with my headphones. This is also why I was not necessarily getting airtime because I was in the corner with my headphones in learning every lip sync song, regardless of how well I did or not. End quote. Up until the section about the finale, it's mostly just queens sharing opinions on each other, so there's not really much of anything interesting happening. Cameron talks about the Good as Hell lip sync against Monet, saying how she felt pressure doing that song because she did not know if the fandom would be okay with her doing, as she said, that type of a song. She lip syncs again the week after that against Miss Cracker, and here's where I smell some shenanigans. So they knew they were doing a lip sync for the crown finale. They want to make that finale as interesting as possible. So who are you going to put into the top 4? Cracker, who did well in the competition, but who has a very, Cracker way of performing, or Cameron Michaels, a silent killer lip sync assassin. So Miss Cracker spent the season saying that out of all of the songs that they were told they would be lip syncing to, she does not want to lip sync to the song Nasty Girl. And the production specifically chooses that song for her bottom 2 lip sync. I smell bullshit. For all of the non-information we got up until now, they really went all out revealing stuff about the finale. Eureka shares that her and Cameron had made a pact to pick each other to lip sync against to ensure that at least least one Tennessee queen would be fighting for the crown. However, I do not really believe that, since Cameron shares that she told production that she would pick Eureka, and then she, ended up choosing Asia O'Hara. Cameron does say that she does not know why she picked Asia to lip sync against, but Asia thinks that Cameron picked her because she was the easiest to beat. The infamous aspect of the finale were the butterflies. The queens were supposed to clear their reveals and their stunts with the producers, but Asia never did that with the butterflies. Let's read out her entire story about this. Quote, I had gone to an event and they did this butterfly release. I was wondering if I could do that out of a costume. So I contacted the company that did the butterfly release for the event. They sent the butterflies for me to do a rehearsal in Texas. The butterflies come dormant in a cold pack. You have to let them rise to room temperature in order for them to be awake to fly. I rehearsed this in Dallas and I was like, oh my god, this is great, this is perfect. This is going to be the best thing ever. For the finale, I took one packet of them up to the roof of the hotel just to check to make sure that everything was still a go. I let them ride to room temperature in my hotel room, then went upstairs when there was nobody else on the roof at this little rooftop bar. I did the whole release thing and I was like, okay, this is great. So my dressing room is cold and my assistant is telling, what can we do because it's super cold in here? And so he was trying to use a blow dryer. Everything is very rushed. You don't have a lot of time to get everything situated. And so get upstairs and we're holding to go onto the stage and I feel my hands and my hands are ice cold. I don't know if it's the adrenaline or is it too cold in here. So I opened one of the ones on my breast and tried to peek in it and they seem to be fine. I had planned 4 releases. In the moment, you're just like, get through it, just get through the performance. I did the first one and I thought, maybe that's just a fluke. The ones on my body that are closer to my chest will be warmed and it will be fine. But no, I kept thinking the next one is going to work. It's all a flash. In the blink of an eye, it's over with. I was trying to stay optimistic. Obviously, as we saw, it was not fine. It was too cold. They were all still dormant, and so it was a complete disaster. End quote. Cameron Michaels did not even see this happening. However, when she saw the butterflies on the ground, she thought that Asia had mechanical butterflies. Whatever that means. There was only 15 minutes between Cameron being told that she had won and her going out to do the top 3 lip sync, according to Cameron. While she was getting ready, she remembered that the final lip sync was to Bang Bang by Nikki, Jessie, and Ariana, so she assumed that they were going to make Eureka versus Aquaria a double shantae. This is the lip sync where Aquaria slipped and fell, and the audience at the finale was very much so behind Eureka in that lip sync. Aquaria explains that she fell because the bottoms of her shoes were slippery. She even learned the choreography to If to impress RuPaul. Eureka said about Aquaria's performance, quote, it was cute. She was all over the place at first lip sync though. She slipped and fell a few times. She was kind of sloppy. She slipped and fell. She dropped the fan. End quote. Aquaria does confirm that she did fall twice during that lip sync. And after the double shantae, Eureka was out of it because she knew that meant Aquaria was winning the season. And thank God she did. The chapter on All-Stars, which at that point of interviewing queens for the book during the 2020 pandemic had 5 seasons filmed and 4 released, got only 21 pages of content in the book. Yikes! All-Star seasons have more dirt and controversy than regular seasons. There's no mention here of, for example, Willem on All-Stars 1, Fifi on All-Stars 1. Was the season really made for Chad to win it after season 4? All-Stars 2 is barely mentioned. There's no talk of Torji's elimination on All-Stars 3, Morgan's strategy, BB's elimination of Aja. Who did BB want to eliminate? Why was BB on this season? Even Dayla's elimination was glossed over, and All-Stars 4 and 5 are barely a fart in this book. But okay, let's share what is actually in here about All-Stars. How does casting for All-Stars even happen? Well, Terrence Smothers will give the producers and casting people a group of 20 queens who might be interested in doing the season, and they, with Ru and the other producers, quote, will start to see who in the group would make a good ensemble. We are looking for compelling storylines, who went home too soon and has voiced they have more to prove, who has had a glow up since their season. There are so many variables. End quote. Tom Campbell shares the following on All-Stars 1, quote, because Logo had a small budget, they offered us 6 episodes for the first All-Stars. That's not enough. So from the goodness of our hearts, but not from the brains of our producers, we decided to have them compete as teams. That was my bad idea. My desire was to get as many drag queens on the show as possible. End quote. Everyone that was on All-Stars 1 said they hated that season. There's yet another inconsistency here between Yara and Alexis' story on the bottom 2, or well, rather bottom 4 lip sync, where Yara used that weird buzzer thing to replace Alexis. Yara said that it was planned, Alexis said that it wasn't, so much so that they grew apart after All-Stars 1. And that's it about All-Stars 1. All-Stars 2, we don't know her. We skip right to Dela's self-elimination, where literally no new information is given, other than the fact that the producers did not have Trixie in mind as the winner of the season, and that because of her win, they're not going to repeat the jury format. This same producer later says that the tie between Monet and Trinity was planned. Girl, be for fucking real. Y'all would have filmed it had it been planned. I hate y'all. Monet herself says here that she would much rather have had Trinity win solo than have the double win. Fuck all of y'all who still pretend Monet did not win just for the sake of Naomi's blonde and white comment not repeating for the 4th season in a row, and for tormenting me for the past couple of years for me saying that it is so. The final chapter of the book is just everyone who was interviewed about the book saying nice things about the show and its impact. So there isn't really much else to say here. And honestly, this was a dreadful read. But there were some actually interesting facts about the show that I did not know. The problem with this type of a book is that it has to assume the reader has only ever seen each episode of Drag Race once and has never seen anything else about the show ever, which is pretty impossible. Even the most casual fans of Drag Race have at least seen memes from Untucked, you know? Because the book assumes that the reader knows close to nothing about the show and the queens, the contents of the book are not that engaging. Also, it needs a lot of editing. There were so many mistakes, timeline issues, and inconsistencies in the writing. I applaud the writer on transcribing all the interviews and then putting them in as much of a coherent order as it is possible. But again, conceptually, this book is bad. I assume there are some diehard fans that knew some of the stuff I found surprising or new, so to them, this video might not have been helpful at all. This is probably going to be my longest video to date, and I'm going to dread editing it, but I wanted to get this done because there isn't a lot of literature, like actual writing, done on Drag Race. But there should be, because, you know, reading is fundamental and all that. Thank you for watching, by the way.